Alright, so now that I have it all laid out, what I did was I marked the dead center line, and then I marked center line going widthwise. That way I had something to base myself off of. And then each one of these lines are where either the amp or the capacitor and the crossover work. I have it spaced off a little bit to the right so that in case down the road I want to upgrade my amp to a much bigger amp, I have about 12 inches to move it to the left, where I could still have my power wires coming on from the right, but I can just cover up the hole when I put the amp on further over to the left. It just leaves you open to more options without having to redo everything. Alright, so here's what I'm going to be doing. I needed some spacers to space out the bolts that are going to attach it to the back of the subwoofer box. I couldn't find any that weren't $3 a piece because they were chrome plated. You're not going to see these. So what I ended up getting was some coupling nuts. It's found in the same section as the fasteners. They're like $1 for 3. Now, they're threaded, not the same as mine. It doesn't fit. So what I'm doing, because I don't need it to thread in, I just need it to slide through, is I'm drilling out the insides so that my attachment bolt will just slide right through there. So that's a little trick if you need about 1 inch worth of a spacer for your system and you can't find anything that works without paying an arm and a leg. Remember to start with the small bit and work your way up. So for this part, I'm using T-nuts just like I did on the rest of my system to hold the amp, the capacitor, and the crossover to the amp wall that I built. You can get these at Lowe's or Home Depot. I found them easier to get at Home Depot though, and they're only about $1.05 for 3 of them. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to drill out a hole that's big enough for this piece to go right through it. I've already done my holes on the other side, these MDF splits, and either you can put it in, push it in and use a hammer, or you could put the bolt in from the other side and tighten it down through. Since I'm going to be using my amps, which I don't want to use as a leverage point, I'm going to be hammering these in, especially since it's nice and easy. Alright, now it's time to set up the amp and everything on the other side and see where I'm going to drill for the wires. Now that I have the amp wall all set up, with all the holes drilled and the mounting points mounted, I wiped it off. Now I can start spraying adhesive on there and covering it up with the carpet. For this I'm going to be using a Boss Stitch stapler with 1/2 inch staples and 3M Super Trim adhesive. I also have Super 77, but I want to use this stuff first. Now that that's sprayed, you want to move it to the side, allow it to set up, and spray your carpet. Since you sprayed that part on your carpet, you could see an outline right here, so you know exactly where you need to spray. So now that I have it carpeted, one of the issues that you're going to run into is finding these small little holes right here at the bottom. So what I found works best is I just get a nail, I stick it up inside the hole, and what that does is it gives you a little bit of an indentation right here, if you could see that. Then I just push up a little bit and I make a little slit around it. Then once you make that little slit, you can cut off the excess, grab one of your little bolts, stick it down in, and screw it in. One thing that I like doing when it comes to cutting my holes, I've already got them cut. As you can see, that they're wide enough. But instead of trying to trim around here, what I normally do is just cut a slit. As you can see right here. When you push the wires through, it'll stretch that out. But it will also tighten around the wires. And for me personally, I think that gives you a much cleaner look, and that's what I prefer. One thing that's very important when you're wiring up your subs, especially when you're using the same color wire for the positive and negative, I like to use some heat shrink and just put it on the negatives and then heat it up. That way I know all the negatives are black and all the positives are blue, or whatever color you choose. You can use a lighter. I just use a heat gun. Just heat it up evenly while you're rotating it. And that way it keeps it very easy for you to figure out, and you don't cross up the wires on your subs. Alright, so this is when the amp wall is going to start to make sense. I have the subwoofer box in the vehicle already. As you can see, I have my speaker wires, my main power, and I have the remote wire and the control knob. It's the only wires that I have loose in the back of the vehicle. Everything else is already mounted. I also have the RCA cables loose, but everything else is already mounted. So I'm going to grab the amp wall, and then you'll see what my plans are. Basically what's going to happen is all my wires are going to be hidden behind the amp wall. I could unbolt it, bring it back, work on it, and put it back up, and it's all going to be sealed. You'll barely see any wires whatsoever. So as you can see, the amp wall design made it so that there are barely any wires noticeable. The only real wires outside of the box that you can see would be the positive and the ground right here, which I'm going to do a little bit more maneuvering and get those hidden as well. Everything else is behind here. It looks flush, looks like the same box. You'd never know that it was a separate piece. Thanks for watching this subwoofer build series. If you missed a video, click on one of the links here to go back and watch what you missed. I appreciate you watching these videos, and click the like button if it was helpful to you. Leave some comments down below to let me know how I'm doing and what you would like to see next. If you had any questions, leave them down below and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.